And welcome to the Trill MBA show. I am your host, the Trillest MBA you will ever know, and I am here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America. Today, we are talking about where you are halfway through your summer internship. In the previous episode, we talked about how to secure the internship bag. So that was at the beginning of the summer. Now we're halfway through the summer. So you should be about week 5 or 6 in your summer internship at the time you hopefully are listening to this episode. And we want to talk about what success should look like. And if your experience isn't looking like success, then what can you possibly do to salvage this situation on the tail end of your experience and gain an offer? So today I'm so excited. I have one of my most favorite interns ever with me. Joining me today on the podcast, Jessika is a former intern at the previous big bad CPG company that I worked for. Jessika is smart and ambitious, and she's definitely one to watch. She holds an MBA from the University of Alabama and is one of the many go getters and rock stars that are ready to take the corporate world by storm. I cannot wait to just sit back and watch Jessica's rise to the top. I was fortunate enough to meet Jessika at National Black MBA Conference, and that's where we recruited her for our MBA summer internship program. So, Jessika, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I just want to let you know I am just beyond happy that we met in New Orleans. I'll never forget, we ran into you on the street. And I was like, oh my God, you're amazing. So, lesson number one about recruiting conferences, always be on your P's and Q's. Just stay ready, right, Jessica?
Exactly, because you could be walking down Bourbon Street and run into some people that will end up being your lifelong mentors. So always stay ready.
Just stay ready. So, Jessica, we won't mention the name of the company because I don't want to be sued. um, but let's talk about your summer. Let's talk about like how you arrived at I want to intern at this company for this summer.
Cool. Well, I guess to make a long story short, as it pertains to this company, I had a separate work experience former to this summer internship within kind of their sales division. And so I'd already had exposure with the company. Not to mention, my dad had been working with this company for quite a number of years. And I remember, doing the do at the um, National Black MBA Conference and just walking from table to table, obviously trying to get my resume in with a variety of companies. But I remember seeing this company's booth and instantly just saying, you know what, why not? Let's just see. I know I want to be in a different division, so maybe I can find a point person that would be the best to help me get into that different division. And walked up, submitted my resume, and began talking with a lot of major corporate leaders from the organization. And really just felt like, hey, I'm really connecting with people, and it's not like I have to fake it to make it. Talking with these people, like I had already known what this company does and already worked it pretty extensively within the field for the organization. So the conversations just seemed to flow naturally, and I said, okay, let's just see how far this interview process goes. Follow up the next day. It went really well. I thought it was probably one of the most competitive interview processes I'd ever gone through before. And, just really didn't know how it was going to go. And then a month later, I literally get the phone call that I would be joining them for the summer internship. And I just remember like thanking God on my hands and knees, that my dream internship was really coming my way and that was coming into fruition for me. So knew I wanted to be at a competitive organization. And at the time, this was, in my eyes, the best of the best. So that's why I decided to go with that and not any other offers at the time.
Wow. You know, and then too, I want to let people know like Sometimes you meet people that work for the organization, and those people are amazing.
Mhm.
And you just love them, and you're like, oh my God, I want to work with them. But be clear, they are just, they either are one of two things. They either really do represent that organization and the culture, or they're an anomaly.
Right.
And I would say in our case, there's some really, really great people, and you hope to get to work with them. But then in the other case, there's some really not so great people. And well, now let's talk about the first week of your internship.
I think that phase could definitely be described as like fresh and dewy, like excited to be in the atmosphere at that corporate headquarters, just soaking it all in. And of course, meeting all the important stakeholders in your project. You're literally spending your entire time in Outlook scheduling 30-minute meet and greets with a list of 30 individuals that your manager has identified as being important to you and that could be valuable resources to your project throughout the summer. So that's that. That was that whirlwind. But I was also keeping a balance and making sure that I was connecting with some of the leaders from the diversity team that had been so important in my recruitment. They weren't necessarily like direct stakeholders on my project or deliverables, but they were important in terms of emotional support and just overall guidance throughout the summer. So making sure I was making contact with all these people and not getting overwhelmed with just each one.
Right. Yeah. Because it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of moving pieces happening. So you've got to get onboarded, get your
Mhm.
laptop, just those logistic things need to happen. Hopefully they have a seat for you. Did you have a seat? I think you had a seat and a laptop your first day, did you?
Yeah, they pretty much set up all those things. Now, let me tell you, after post internship, things kind of change when you are a full time hire. You got to set up a lot of stuff on your own. But
Yes.
during internship, they normally have everything set up for you. And while you're doing meetings all day, you're also in your onboarding intro sessions, just some basic 101s like what is this company? What do we do? What are our workflows? How do we use different types of applications or data systems that could be important to you as you're pulling information and insight to inform your project. And then also, of course, the fun like mixers and happy hours that are also very important to go to because your senior leaders are normally at those events. And it's important to, put a face with a name pretty early on in your internship.
That's really good advice, Jessica. And that's so true. And even my poor introverted friends, I know y'all hate the small talk. I know it gets on your nerves, but you got to suck it up and you got to do it because if you don't, it just becomes detrimental to what you're trying to do, which is secure the money bag from the summer internship and
Yeah,
convert it to full time. Like that's the goal. So, Jessica,
and I would
tell.
say, true, be you, like be yourself, even in those after hours events. Like, if you're not someone that casually likes to, indulge in a cocktail, then don't do that. Ask for like a nice juice or something. Like, you don't feel pressured to go outside of yourself just because, you're trying to fit in with the crowd. I think truly embody who you are and just have natural conversations is what's most important.
Amen. Look at Look at my mentees. Love it. Okay, Jessica, well, tell me about when you got your actual project. Like, what were the thoughts going through your mind?
Yeah. So what was interesting is I had actually received my first project briefing on the phone as I was driving 8 hours to move into my new apartment that summer. And so in that project briefing, of course, I wasn't like looking at a slide or a deck or anything to help like read what I was actually hearing. And so, the project that I had received over the phone seemed this thing where I would be like really into like digital, cool, techie things, bringing about all this change and things that the company was really focusing on at the time. And I remember opening up my laptop like week one, once I was actually starting, and looking at a project briefing that seemed a little different from what I had heard on the phone and conversed with my manager about. And this one seemed more of a kind of like an auditing, like very vague project that was kind of confusing. And I just remember feeling that, right? Feeling confused, feeling like, is this what I think it is? But at the time, I just felt like, okay, no, I have to act like I know exactly what they're talking about. I have to act like this is exactly what I remember, just because I didn't want to start off on day one thinking or giving off an impression that I didn't even get it the first time we talked. I never wanted to start off like that. So I definitely didn't speak up on that confusion on day one. And looking back, I probably should have asked more clarifying
Mm-hmm.
questions
Mm-hmm.
just to help myself later on.
Yeah, because I remember after you had started and you like sat down with me and you were trying to explain your project to me, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I was so confused. I was like, what are you supposed to do? And then I think you were trying to explain. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's funny now. But you were
Oh
trying
yeah,
to explain it, and I'm like, why are we asking you to do that? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it was the
right.
dumbest internship project I had ever seen in my life. There are some people that should be very ashamed of themselves, and I hope that one day they hear me say that. Like, if you're listening to this and you were involved in deciding on that internship project, that was the stupidest thing you've done in your life. And first of all, so one thing I want to talk about with your internship project, it was just huge. It felt so huge in scope. Like, not only was it confusing, but it was like, okay, what is it that you tangibly want me to deliver? And it was so like white space and out the box. And it was just
Yeah,
like, I was like, okay, you've got 10 weeks.
yeah, right. It's like I literally had like a scroll handed to me that said, "Your task is to solve world hunger,
Yeah,
but be here by 8:30 every morning, and
right.
don't stay after because it's going to make like it look like you're working too hard and it's too hard for you." It's like
Right, right.
that's exactly in a nutshell how I could describe.
And I was like, dear Lord. So, to anybody out there right now, and you have a crazy ass huge internship project that feels overwhelming, what you need to do right now, if you haven't already, you need to talk to your manager to understand like scope and like, can we pare this down and maybe bite this not bite this um can we chop this up into the right chunk? So you need to ask to pare this down and chop it up into chunks, and then you need to say what is the priority, and then get really specific on what that deliverable is for the end of the summer and what your presentation will look like. Because it's not fair to you to only have 10 weeks to work on something that after you leave, they're going to put two people on the project and have them work on it for a whole year.
Yeah, I think Felice, I think that's great advice. And quite often, like you only, like you said, you only have 10 weeks, and you really don't have any, eyes on the ground after you leave to really see what's going on with your work. But essentially, what your project should be is, this neat package, right, delivered to the team that you're working on that they can simply pick up, like in a baton race, right? Like they can
Yeah.
just like pick up that baton and keep running with it. So I think that it's very important to say, okay, what is idealistically, like within these 10 weeks, what does a finished end state look like? And then how can we break that up into easily and but will challenge me, right? Deliverables per week to make sure we get to that, because I know that my package should not be gift wrapped and under the tree by the end of 10 weeks. Like it should still be a work in progress state that you all will continue to finish.
Right.
And I think because it will help you feel less intimidated by like, oh wow, they're making me solve world hunger. No, we just need you to find some ways in which we could solve it when we need to.
Exactly. And it should be very clear to you what that is. So if you have any confusion around what your deliverable is, you need to really quickly one get with your manager. And if you don't trust your internship manager, then you need to find your peers or advocates. And when I say peers, not your internship peers, but like people who, when you get the full-time offer and you would come back, you would be working with them side by side, like they wouldn't necessarily be your manager. That's what I mean by peer. So they essentially are doing the job that you would do if you came back full time. So
Right.
find, the sharpest one and say, hey, I want to get your thoughts on my internship project. Can you help me, make sure that I'm seeing this in the way the organization wants this internship project to be seen? And you want to go to that person. So like at our company, there's this one analyst who's just amazing, rock star. And I would always tell people, go talk to XYZ person because she had a good grasp of the overall business. She had been around a long time. And although she was an analyst, she operated at a higher level. And so she was always a good person to like, ping ideas off of, and get her thought leadership on things. And it was a safe space because she was a peer. So think about who those people are for you and search those people out to get thought leadership on your project. And then go to your manager with suggestions of, here's what I think we should do with this project. Because it's not fair to you to deliver, like you said, Jessica, world hunger in 10 weeks. Like it's not feasible. So
Yeah.
let's talk about how you managed your manager. Or did you have a manager?
Yeah.
What happened week 2 of your internship?
So around week 2, obviously I'm still getting to know the team, sitting in on some, weekly meetings. And around, I think it was week 2 or 3, I was told by my manager, pretty like excitedly that he was receiving a promotion. And so that promotion actually was going to take him to another brand team. And so what that meant for me is that, Jessica, I'm still going to be your direct manager, like your direct line of contact. I just won't be present in the office very much because I'm traveling. And, just send things my way. And if you need my point of view on it, I'll give it to you via email. And so for me, that was a little problematic because, I'm like, okay, this is my decision maker. Like, I've got to impress this person, this manager, and yet now he is directing me to, have weekly meetings instead with someone who was basically a rung even above him. So like a senior director, which for me was a little intimidating as someone who was just an intern and didn't necessarily know yet like how candid I could be with that senior director, because obviously I don't ever want to ask a quote unquote dumb question that early. And I don't know necessarily if that was a safe place situation as
It
police
wasn't.
referred to.
Let's be clear. It was not. It was not a safe space. Like anytime you're an intern and you were the senior director, that's a buttoned up space and you need to be on your P's and Q's. That is not a safe space. Let me just put that out there and be real clear. Right. And I don't care how cool that senior director seems, he's still judging you. So act accordingly.
Like at the end of the day, because that individual wasn't assigned to be my direct manager, there's less buy-in, right? There's less of an incentive to say, hey, this is not just your project, Jessica. This is our team's project. And we're going to do whatever we need to do because obviously we want this to be a successful summer to you. We want you to learn a lot, and we eventually want you to leave with an offer. And I I never had that type of, camaraderie or candor that soon in my internship. And eventually I saw it reflect when I was doing super duper lost, like wandering in an abyss every day, like looking like a zombie because my manager was flying out to New York every day meeting with his new team and his, on a whirlwind of his own successes, but I felt like I was being left in the dust and I didn't feel safe to ask questions like, hey, what the heck is my project over email? It just wasn't a
Right.
good situation.
Yeah. So let's just be real clear. If this is how your summer is looking, don't get upset. Stay calm and make the best of it and learn what you can. Because one, how you handle everything can make the difference on whether you get the offer or not. And two, you know, everything is a lesson. And so it is frustrating. I had to just sit back and witness your internship process and what you were going through and how, your manager got this promotion to a new role. And then it was, and then it's like you didn't really have a good manager for the summer. You didn't have a manager for the summer, basically. And then juxtaposed against my manager was managing another intern for a project for my team. And he was canceling meetings with me to meet with the intern. Like, oh, can we push this meeting back? Because I got to meet with such and such because we got to work on his internship. I mean, he met with him 2 or 3 times a week at least, if not every day. And they were so excited about this, what I would call a slam dunk kind of project. It was very straightforward, very brand centric, very consumer centric project. It was not white space. It was totally an activation project. And it just seems so unfair when I was like looking at your project versus the intern on my team's project. And I was like, this is bullshit. This is just bullshit. And just know, like, you're going to come up against bullshit in your internship. You're going to come up against bullshit in your regular job. And you have to figure out, like, how do I make this work for me? And so, one thing I love about Jessika is that she stayed positive the whole summer. And that's one thing I learned from you. I don't know if you realize that.
I think that what was different for me is that I've been this like high achiever my whole life, but can I really say like I was ever in situations that didn't necessarily have the resources I needed to succeed? I've never been in a situation like that. And it was extremely challenging and I think made me confront a lot of my insecurities as they pertain to working in corporate America through this experience. It made me really look at, okay, how do I take control of my destiny here when no one else is helping me steer this ship? And you realize at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason, but you do have, some sense of like ownership of your mindset at least, right? Like I don't know, whether or not you're faith based or, what your motivations are driven from, but for me, it really made me get in touch with that and realize that at the end of the day, I have to be my best version of self every time, every single time I walked into the office, even though like I really felt as though I was all alone. And in times like that, I think that's when you find your true strength, and it just powers you through every other working experience afterwards. So I could say, looking back now, I'm almost baffled by the ability to have positivity during that. But I also know I had some really dark times and had to bring myself up out of that. So I think that's where that positivity came from. It's like, dang it, I'm gonna get through these 10 weeks. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get this finish line no matter what.
Yeah. And, your presentation turned out really great. I was fortunate enough to sit in your presentation, your final presentation, and I was very impressed with the work you had done. I was very impressed with you the entire summer. actually. And knowing that the organization did not set you up for success and you still, accomplished a great deal. So I will forever be grateful for not just having you, be a light in the office and do great work your summer, but then also, continuing to stay in touch with me and just watching you be great. I'm excited for everything to come. So we're not going to tell you whether or not Jessika got the full-time offer. It will be a cliffhanger because we want to focus on what do you do right now to get the offer. So Jessika, first thing, we'll do rapid fire. First thing that comes to mind, like for weeks like 3, 4, 5, what should people be doing in those weeks?
Yeah, I would say by week 3, you need to understand your scope and then set your plan. Like really, like clear, smart goals. If that's what you do, set those goals each and every week for the remainder of your summer. So you're going to stay on schedule, and that you see, you have a clear sight as to what the finish line looks like. But I would say that's probably week 3.
Okay.
And then near the half of the summer, is that where we're going to go next?
Yeah, 4 and 5.
4 and 5, I would say at this point, you have these big 3, maybe 3 big goals to get you there. You should be done with goal 1, right? You should already, and this is something Felicia would literally hound into me day 1. She's like, you better start your deck.
Yes.
You need to have half of it built out.
Yes.
Already. Even if it is just, like placeholder slides, have the look and feel of what you want, and then make sure you're constantly putting in content, every single little piece of research, every finding. If it's, you don't know where it goes yet, put it in the appendix so that you can just pull it back up later. Don't try and make everything pretty, but have 50% of that deck done by 4, for sure.
Yeah, and week 4, you should be showing it to people. You should be showing people what you have, getting reactions, getting buy-in, bringing people along, because at the end of your summer, in your final presentation, all people should be doing is nodding their head up and down. Yes, 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 yes. Because guess what? They've seen this shit like 4 or 5 times, most of them. No one in the room should not have seen your project before you present it. Like everybody in that room should have at least seen it, heard it, touched it, input on it, and they should be able to see, that you took in account what the feedback that they gave you, and that you incorporated it, and you are doing a great job. Like they just want to see their thoughts reflected back to them. I mean, the more I think about it, this whole internship process is so narcissistic in so many ways. Oh God, I don't know why human beings do these things to each other. It's so dumb. And and I know a lot of people will probably be like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. I think what's dumb is the way that we go through the summer. There are a lot of dumb things that we do, like not supporting a person who's brand new to an organization, who's in the middle of their MBA experience or their undergraduate experience. They don't know what they don't know. And then we act brand new when we comes to light, like there's some things that they don't know. Duh, that's why it's an internship. They're not supposed to know everything. And you actually, guess what? You're going to have to help them. I think one of the biggest pet peeves that I have is when I hear feedback about an intern that goes something like, I just felt like we had to do a lot of hand holding. And it's like, duh. Yeah, this person, especially when it's like undergrad interns. So this is like their first real job, like they're like 21 years old, 20 or 21 years old. They don't know what they're doing. They have no clue. And if this is their first internship, they definitely don't know. And so, we don't do a good job as internship managers and people in organizations, senior leaders. We don't do a good job of setting the expectation or letting the person know, like, hey, these are the things that we want to see from you. We use a lot of flowery language and we confuse interns. Like, Jessica, was there ever a time that we confused you?
Oh, for sure. I would say yes. And I think the confusion for me occurred when, because no one really understood my project, everyone had a different version of their point of view that I was trying to incorporate. And what you need in your project is a single version of the truth that's going to translate through in your final presentation. And so when you hear people, like I would meet with maybe, let's say, three managers, right, from
Mm-hmm.
different departments or different brand teams, and get their take on a piece of my project. And they would each come up with this super creative idea that they saw a competing organization utilizing. And then they were like, yeah, I think that'd be cool. Take a look into it. But you got to think, like, those are three completely different creative ideas. I need one. Like, I need everybody to agree on one. So
Right.
that's what was most confusing to me is I, and I think a lot of individuals in the business world are this way, especially MBAs. We want to succeed and we want to succeed with the buy-in of everyone around us. Like, I can say to myself, I'm a people pleaser. But what that came was a detriment to me, and I felt like I had to incorporate everyone's, or else no one was going to vote for me. At the end of the day. So that was really challenging and confusing for me. Is like, what do I say is like what I want to do while respecting and incorporating other people's really super cool high tech ideas.
Right. And the sad thing is that we put you in this position and then the expectation is that you have a high it takes a high level of experience to know how to finesse that, right? To know how to take everybody's feedback and incorporate it in a way where everybody feels good. Like there are people who've been working in corporate America for 20 years and they still don't do that well. So to ask an intern or to expect that an intern can demonstrate that, I don't think is fair. It's not even a thought. It's not fair. Let's point blank period. That's not fair. But in hindsight, I realized that what I think the expectation, I still don't know because your project was bullshit. So I think the expectation was that you gave them the answer, and it's weird because it's like, yeah, you come up with the answer, okay, but then when you would trying to come up with the answer you were making sure they would buy into, then it was like all this churn and all this unfocused energy. And I don't think it was fair to expect you to somehow bring that all together in the way that they would want. Like I'm still discombobulated. Like your internship summer experience should be a case study for every Fortune 500 company that has marketing interns.
I would too say, for some very high level strategy projects, there is such an importance in understanding the organization, from like an org chart level. Like, how do each of these teams collaborate? Like, who is responsible for what falls into whose workflow? Because there's some things that, like, you wouldn't even find out until working at an organization for like 3 years. It
Mm-hmm.
takes that much time to really understand the inner workings, and I'm going to say it, politics of an organization, because that all plays into high level strategy. And no matter what you say, it could be the coolest thing, right? The most like digital native thing. But if it doesn't fall into the cultural fabric of that organization, it's like you're talking to a brick wall. So it's really important to get, just a strong sense of how the organization works and is structured.
Yeah, and the way you do that as an intern is you really like, especially ladies out there, if you came into your internship through diversity recruiting, lean into those people that recruited you, that are in the function that you're working in. So if you're in marketing, then you lean into the marketer. So for Jessika, that was me. That was my work BFF. That was Terica. So lean into those people who essentially would, again, be your peers for the most part, coming out of the internship and going into the full-time offer. And that way they should be able to help you figure out, like, these are the people that you really need to go talk to, and these are the questions you really need to ask. You're gonna have to get hand holding on the down low. That I think that's what frustrates me so much, because at the end of the day, all interns are getting their hands held in different ways, because you have to, because they've never worked at the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that we try to make it seem like there's this skill if you can quietly tiptoe around the organization and get people to help you set you up for success.
Yeah.
That's
And I feel like obviously the goal of any internship is to get the final offer. And I would say at the halfway point, if you're still looking at all of your deliverables like WTF, like I'm drowning and I don't feel safe to talk to anyone. Like I feel like I'm about to burst because I'm too afraid to ask anyone for fear that they will think that I'm dumb or I'm slow because I can't just get it. And I think if you're feeling that, you have to, like we said before, trigger into that positivity, but also know no matter what, this professional experience is just one more being added to your resume. And no matter what, if it's with that company or another one, it's a step forward. It's a step in the right direction. It's a step to make you as, working professional even more marketable, because now you've seen, what some of the ugly truths are about joining an organization and having to deliver a project at super fast speed in 10 weeks. Like
mm-hmm.
now you see how, ambiguous it can be, and it only further informs how you approach those situations, because you will encounter them again in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Yeah, and I mean, this is corporate America. Like, the thing is, you come into an organization, they're paying you to think, right? They're paying you to figure things out and solve problems. And so part of the internship hazing, I think, is to see, like, how well you solve problems. Okay, fine. But I think where I get frustrated with the process is that every project is so different and it's not an even playing field. And so if you're a person who has a straightforward project, those are pretty regular problems to solve. They've been solved before. And now it's just you demonstrating your unique way of thinking through how to solve that problem and execute that project. Whereas if you have a crazy ass white space, weird, uh, bullshit project, then you you still need to demonstrate how you problem solve, but you're now at a disadvantage because not very many people can help you like they can help you on a very straightforward project that they've worked on before. So,
Right. And think as we talk about, putting together the deck, something that I saw from my peers was that quite often they would be working with their managers or their peer mentors, and they would say, "Oh yeah, we've got a slide for that. Like I'm just going to pull it out of this old, whatever review deck that we made and send it your way, and that's essentially how you want that new slide to look in your deck." And for me, I never, I didn't get like a like a deck, like a copy of information and how my team presented, because each team has their own way of like kind of putting things together,
mhm.
right? I never got that example deck until like halfway through, like, and that those types of things make your life so much easier when people have the resources to just give you some context, give you some guidance, and then you can, create how you want, but you're not reinventing the wheel. And
Right.
that's really what gets you caught up and slows you down if you've got to do everything from scratch. And even when you're blind, like you don't know how to even make it. So
Right.
look for those types of resources. If someone else has done it, list and shift.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what you hope for. So just know, let's say you've got two different types of part. You got the standard quo, knock it out the park project. Then you got the crazy, somebody just invented this project because they thought it would be cool to get an intern to do some bullshit. Okay. If you have the standard quo project, you're probably in a really good space. If you don't have the standard quo type of project, let's make sure you have some tangible bullet points to take away now that you're about halfway in your summer. Right now, you and your manager, you should be meeting with your manager every week. If you don't have a manager, you need to really push whoever the senior leader is to identify the person that you should be meeting with every week to do your checkpoint of your project. And then whoever recruited you, so if you came in through a diversity recruiting program, then you need to have your peer mentor or whoever in that diversity group, you need to be meeting with them every week as well. Now, let's talk about how to identify the right champion in that group, because I think you can have a good champion and then you can have a sucky champion. And Jessika, you know what I'm talking about. um, what would you say? How did you feel when some of the feedback you got, and probably about halfway through your internship, how did that make you feel when you were meeting with a particular person and they were giving you information that wasn't quite, well, that was contradictory actually to the information you were getting from your actual team for your project?
Yeah, I at that point felt like again another barrier that was causing miscommunication and was causing me to get confused. And I really thought I had assumed that that individual, that champion for me, was going to be able to kind of read between the lines because he had seen former interns before in the past and read between the lines and figure out, okay, what do we need to do? This is the final hour. Like, we just need to get her to the finish line. Let me try and get some points for her so that we could just knock this out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I felt as though I was being more so questioned on my logic that I had already built up. I mean, we're 6 weeks in at this point. Like, I had already been going down a track and like really sure and getting head nods from my own team. And I was being questioned and saying that I wasn't doing enough from my own champion at that moment. And that we needed to do something different to stand out, to really make sure that, we pulled it into the finish line. So for me, that kind of made me feel very insecure and like, okay, well, so I've been doing nothing this whole summer, and now you want me to start from scratch, throw away everything, and go do this really, bigger, techie kind of initiative. So that was hard. And then when that individual, kind of, I voiced my plea of help, and that individual then, went between the lines to go speak with my manager and have a private meeting about me and saying basically like trying to get the inside knowledge. And I was so afraid after that, having known that they talked, because I was afraid that it had given my own manager the impression that I'm now running to other people instead of him to get help or something. And so
But your
it was
manager wasn't there. Let's just be
yeah,
real clear.
yeah,
He wasn't available. He did not make himself available. And in
right,
hindsight, and I hope these people are listening to this. I want them to listen to this, because in hindsight, you can't sit there and say, "Oh, I'm here for you. Just reach out to me." And then not really. Like, let's just be real clear, to make it seem like you're so busy and you got a lot going on. That's intimidating for an intern. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to be here for you, and not actually show up and not actually be in the office. as an internship manager.
Yeah,
Number
sure.
one. And then number two, if you call yourself being there for the blacks, if you're really gonna be there for the blacks. Like actually help, not just point out all the things that you're doing wrong and all of what you should do. Why don't you actually coach, train, develop? How about that?
Well, and I'm going to speak pretty candidly here, knowing that I was, hired in through diversity programs. When you're looking at someone who looks like you and there's not many of you in the organization, it kind of feels like, well, now I'm not just proving myself to the others. I'm having to prove to myself to you now, and you should be my coach and my fan and my champion. And now I'm trying to prove myself to you of why, I am one of the diverse candidates who deserves a spot here, and that they didn't make a mistake in hiring me. And those are some really hard things to think through. So yeah, I would say make sure you find someone to truly trust that has enough insight, might be a peer of your managers, but truly wants to see you succeed at the end of the day and doesn't want to overcomplicate things.
You know what? That breaks my heart. I literally had tears in my eyes because we shouldn't have to be in proving ourselves mode. We should be in being our great self mode, and we should be helping each other be in that mode, because when you're improving yourself mode, you're wasting energy. You're wasting time, and you can't be your best self because you're walking on eggshells. And you're constantly trying to figure out the politics of, how do I prove myself? How do I prove myself? And you're so busy thinking about that, you're not doing what you need to be doing that actually proves yourself. And it's sad because we don't help each other a lot of times be our best selves. Like, we're so busy picking each other apart that we're not building each other up.
Right.
And to any internship managers out there who happen to listen to this, I need you to go take a good look at yourself in the mirror right now and ask yourself, are you a manager that builds your team up? Or are you a manager that picks your team apart? What kind of manager do you want to be? What kind of manager are you? Because if you're wasting your time picking your team apart, you're trash. You're dead trash. That's what you are.
Ain't that the truth? Woo!
Let it breathe. Yeah. Let it breathe.
I just, it's funny because there's a lot of money, time, and resources and energy spent in internship programs. And the goal is to create a talent pipeline for your organization. And so we all know these basic things. One, everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. Why we don't focus on people's strengths and then figure out how we can utilize their strengths for the best of the organization at large, after we've spent all this time and energy to find these great, talented people. Anybody that listens to Jessika for 5 minutes will know this girl, she's a thinker, she's sharp, she's smart. And anybody would be happy to hire her. The great thing is about an internship program is when you find these people, you have the opportunity to have 10 weeks with them, to groom them, to get them acclimated to your organization and set them up for success. But then a lot of people would say that I'm idealistic.
But I think that there's a strong contrast, right, between what people assume is, setting up for success is not hand-holding. And hand-holding is not setting people up for success. They're extremely different. But I just, there are basic, very, very basic requirements. And some of that is sitting down with someone for however long it may take at the very beginning to just explain things out. yes, you use a lot of acronyms, but don't use those in your first encounter with a brand new intern. Like try and break things down, like feed into the body language. Do they look confused? Do they look insecure? And make sure you're checking in on them at least in the beginning. And this has taught me so much for the type of manager that I want to be one day. And it truly has proven to me that I wasn't in a good setting myself up for success or having others set me up for success situation in that former internship, because now starting, on another phase of, my professional journey, and I, I have a different manager, and that manager is doing things a lot differently, and so I'm learning, and it's all a learning process. And so I encourage everyone who's going through anything in their internship, whether you're successful or you're feeling like it's kind of you're lost in it, to just think about how this now shapes and molds you into the future manager that you will be.
Jessica, I couldn't have said that better.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
And the great thing is that at this point, if you're listening to this and you're halfway and you're feeling this way, all you have to do really to turn it around is just get super honest with yourself and be like, I'm not, like, pride goeth before the fall. Like, put your pride aside and ask for help. Ask for the help that you need.
Yeah.
And if you get that help, like, you can turn your whole summer around right now. So don't be prideful. Don't worry about asking dumb questions. I think especially as women of color, there's this idea that we can't show any quote unquote weakness, and asking for help is a weakness. Asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength, because you know that you can't do everything on your own. And so when you get out of your own head and get out of your own way and ask for the help that you need, then you will be successful. Now, caveat, you have to be strategic about who you ask for help from and when you ask for help. And so, real quick before we go, make sure, number one, you're asking your peers first. And when I say peers, I don't mean the other interns. I mean people who would be in the same position as you will be once you get the offer and come back full time. So if you're, going to be an assistant or associate brand manager when you come back, your peers are the assistants or associate brand managers. If you're going to be analyst when you come back, your peers are the other analysts that are full time now. Those are the people that you find to ask, your quote unquote dumb questions and ask for help. And what that then shows the organization is that you're able to get the help you need to be resourceful, that you don't have to have your hand held. But even though the funny thing is, you going and asking for help from somebody is, somebody could interpret that as, oh, well, such and such held their hand. It's so dumb. We all need help, you guys. We don't know what we don't know. You're walking into a brand new situation. So don't be prideful about it. Get the help that you need. Make every week count. Make sure you are showing your PowerPoint slides as much as possible to as many people as possible. And make sure you talk to your boss about who's going to be in the room for your final presentation, so that you make sure you touch base with all those people way prior. Like, you need to be talking to those people now and getting their input and buy-in now on the story that you're going to deliver at the end of the summer.
Yep.
So that's how halfway midpoint you can turn this around. If it's not looking good, or if it's looking good, stay the course.
Stay the course.
Don't flub up, and most importantly, stay uber positive. And so, Jessika, any last tips or advice you have for the interns out there?
Yeah, I would say this is only the beginning, so just keep a mindset of opportunity in your experience and the positivity, I think, to see it through. like you said, is the most important piece. And just know that, like, at least you got an internship. There are many people who have never had that level of professional experience while they are in college, or people don't get as competitive internships as they wanted to in their MBA programs. So just know that you are in a space of, a blessed space of opportunity, and that's how you should see it to the end.
Awesome. Jessika, thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your story. And just know that we do have a cliffhanger. Did Jessika get her internship full-time offer? Did she secure the summer Schmoney bag? So you'll have to tune in to our next episode, which will be part 3 of this, where we talk about, did you get the offer or nah? And you will find out if Jessika got the offer or not. So stay tuned, and we'll also talk about if you get the offer, if you don't get the offer, what do you do next? So we're going to talk about all that at the end of the summer. So that episode will be coming out later on in August, after all you interns are done with your internship and sitting up there being nervous about whether or not you got the offer or not. We're going to talk about what your next step should be. So until then, you guys, keep it trill. Thanks, Jessika.
Thank you for having me.
And you guys have a great week. Thank you for listening to the Trill MBA Show. Please subscribe to the Trill MBA Show in Apple Podcasts. After you subscribe, rate us, i.e. give us 5 stars, and leave a comment about the show. You can also listen to the Trill MBA Show on Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio Public, SoundCloud, or anywhere where you enjoy listening to your podcast. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Trill MBA Show. Please visit our website, trillmba.com, and join our safe space for exclusive content. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. The Trill MBA Show is a Fair World Corp LLC production, executive produced by Felicia and Rose Anuha. Music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.